Before I start, I'm not replying to this comment with a video to call you out or anything. I just get the words out better if I'm talking. So it is incredibly hard to judge the entirety of humanity on a singular scale. The BMI scale is bullshit. It has been proved. Health has nothing to do with how much you weigh compared to how tall you are. Healthy looks different on every single body. So using words like obese just to put fat people into a category where they're unhealthy isn't helpful. Fat is a neutral descriptor, just like the word tall. It only became an insult when people suddenly decided being fat was undesirable.
This person said it's hard to judge the entirety of humanity on a singular scale, and that the BMI is BS. The BMI isn't the only scale that doctors use to measure someone's health. Fat activists like to act like there is a single number on all patients' charts, and it's just the BMI. Doctors do look at other things, and this person doesn't like the term obese, but it's a medical term used by medical professionals in healthcare settings. If doctors started going around calling their patients fat at will, the absolute storm that would create. Have a doctor call any of my large friends fat in an appointment and watch heads roll.
Actually, this is a good question. If you're making choices that make you feel overall better and happier in your life, then we can absolutely celebrate that. To tie it to weight loss is where we get tricky. Posting before and after photos says that one body is better than the other, even if it is your own body, and points to the ideal that thinner is better. Saying that you're no longer overweight is fatphobic, because over what weight? There's no weight in which you suddenly become unhealthy. I've also heard that he's done a lot of other problematic things. My friend Easy Bake Owen here on TikTok gave a really good explanation and talking and detailing out some of the things. So again, if you're making choices in your life that make you happier, that make you feel better, that's absolutely something to be celebrated. But tying it to weight loss means that you are valuing the fact that you are now thinner instead of the fact that you're making choices that make you happy. Because what happens when you inevitably gain weight back? Because, as we all know, our bodies grow and change over time. 95% of diets fail. And intentional weight loss doesn't exactly work. We have seen in statistics and figures that within 5 to 10 years, a lot of people gain a good portion of the weight back. So what happens when you gain weight back? What are you going to do then? We should be focusing on behaviors, because studies show that it's not necessarily the size of the body that matters when it comes to health, but the behaviors that one participates in. So again, take the focus off the weight.
If I believe one version of my body is better than the other, you have no right to tell me otherwise. And saying there's no weight where you suddenly become unhealthy is such a terrible argument. I said in one of my podcast episodes that just because you aren't noticeably less healthy when you cross a threshold, like from overweight to obese or from pre-diabetic to diabetic, that doesn't mean that it isn't unhealthy. Health just isn't that black and white. And I am beyond tired of hearing people say that everyone who loses weight is just going to gain it back. So what if they do? Are you going to feel vindicated in reveling in your own selfish delusion when you get to tell them, I told you so? Are you going to use somebody else's failure to confirm your own defeatist worldview? Someone might try 10 or 20 times to lose weight before they find the correct sustainable habits to maintain it. But it helps absolutely no one to try to tell people to not even try.
You know, it almost seems like whatever I say, it's not going to matter to you, because you're not hearing what I am saying. I don't know how many times I have said this. It's not about the decision to lose weight. It is how you talk about it and how you portray that and how you are showing that to the people who follow you. It's not offensive to lose weight. People lose and gain weight all the time. Every day, in fact. We fluctuate 5 pounds every day. The problem is the rhetoric behind losing weight and how people treat weight loss. And if you don't understand that, I really can't help you. And it also just seems like you don't want to learn anyway.
For the people who didn't read the comment, it says, so then what is it? Because it seems like people can't lose weight without being offensive to people like you now. And if you exist in fat acceptance spaces, this comment is perfectly reasonable. For fat activists, there are very, very strict guidelines on how someone is allowed to talk about their weight loss, if they're allowed to lose weight at all without being called fatphobic. If someone wants to say, I feel better or more energetic or happier or more confident after losing weight, you have no grounds for telling them they're wrong or that they're spreading fatphobic rhetoric.
So I'm gonna take myself as an example here. So I have size to 24 to 26, which would place me somewhere in between mid-fat and super fat. But if you Google the fat spectrum, there's text underneath. So for mid-fat is you can shop at some mainstream brands, but mostly dedicated plus-size shops, while super fats are usually the highest sizing you have, even at plus-size shops, can often only shop online. I can go into some stores and find clothing that fits me. I often end up shopping online because, I don't really live in a city that's big enough to have plus size stores dedicated to younger people. So I feel more comfortable identifying as a mid-fat, even if I could technically fit in a super fat. So just kind of like, think about your clothes size, but also the experience you have shopping.
So if you didn't fully understand what she was saying, it was essentially that where you identify on the fatness spectrum, the one that categorizes the level of oppression that fat people face, where you identify as flexible based on what clothing options you have available to you in your city. I'm going to give you a moment to digest that. You may experience more fat oppression if your town does not have a torrid. And these people wonder why we get angry when they compare fat oppression to racism, homophobia, and ableism. I wonder why.
This commenter says the idea that fat people are taking resources from thin people when there are literal BMI limits put on access to medical care, they're the ones hoarding. Yes, this is the biggest thing. I'm like, we are literally the ones kept out of fucking everything. We are literally the ones that things are not at all built for or designed for or anything. Thin people take everything and then have the audacity to tell us that we're taking things. Thank you for this edition.
Okay, what this person is discussing in this video are two separate topics. One is the lack of access to medical resources that they think thin people get that they don't get, and two is the strain on the medical system due to the rise in obesity. You can't say that thin people being allowed to get elective surgeries or being able to use MRIs is hoarding the resources. Those resources either weren't made for people your size or they impose a lot of risks to people your size. That's not them hoarding them specifically to keep them away from you. And when people say obesity causes a strain on the medical system, they're usually referring to the fact that things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension are some of the most common health conditions in America, and the treatment of those diseases take a lot of resources in the healthcare system.
This person's full comments say, yeah, people don't seem to understand that there is a big difference between this chair is a little uncomfortable and I can't sit anywhere because none of these chairs will accommodate my size. Same with clothing. Super skinny folks act like not being able to find properly fitting clothes is the same as not being able to find clothes that will go onto my body. It's exhausting having to explain it all the time. Exactly that. There is a huge difference between, every piece of clothing I buy is a little bit too big and I literally cannot find clothes at all that fit me anywhere. Those are two very different problems. There's a huge difference between, wow, this chair is a little bit too big for me and feels a little bit uncomfortable, and there is no chair at all in this building that I can sit in, and now I must sit on the floor or stand. Those are very different problems. Thank you for adding to this.
Yes, those are two very different problems. But if you can't find clothes anywhere and you don't fit into chairs anywhere, that is a big flashing sign that you need to change something. You have gotten to a dangerous size. If you are having those issues, simply not having access to clothes and chairs should not be at the top of your list of problems.